All right, everybody. What's up? Guy here. It is Saturday morning, and I am live on YouTube for the first time since Monday. It's been a long week in Vegas. I am not in Vegas. I got back from Vegas on Friday night and a little impromptu Saturday morning stream. I have not done a Saturday morning stream, I don't think. Feels a little like college football when I'm up getting ready to do something on a Saturday morning, but feeling good. I think I sound okay. And yeah, good Saturday ahead. It's beautiful back here in the Bay. About to head into the marina for a little brunch and get things ready for Super Bowl Sunday. So excited about that. If you're watching on YouTube, awesome. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. The Radio Row Wi-Fi was not streamable. So everything that I put up this week was not live. So if you saw any of those interviews, go check them out. If you missed them, or I guess if you saw them, you don't have to check them out. Thanks for watching them. If you missed them, go check out more on the page of some interviews from this week. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Had a great time in Vegas. Fantastic. So easy. Flights easy. Hotel easy. Most of the like getting around stuff pretty easy. You know, you got to jump in some cabs, some Ubers, but everything's no more, it's $15. So it was great. Going to do some game preview here and hit you with a couple other thoughts from what's going on. If you're listening to the pod, I'll do a separate intro for the pod, I guess. Or maybe this will be part of the intro for the pod. And yeah, let's keep going. If you're listening to the pod, what you're not seeing right now is what the people watching are seeing, which is a photo of me and Big Red, Andy Reid. Fake Andy Reid was at Radio Row, and I posted it on Instagram. Go check if you're not following me on IG at Guy Haberman. I posted on Instagram with just a bunch of dots, ellipsis, like that. And I thought it'd be obvious to everybody that this was fake Andy Reid. The problem is it looks like real Andy Reid. I mean, it looks just like real Andy Reid. And he was walking around Radio Row on Friday, and I'm like, I got to go see this guy. So I took a picture with him, and then right after me, somebody came up and was like, "Coach, big fan. Can I get a photo?" And I turned to Jared, who took the picture with me. I'm like, Jared, I think that person thinks that's really Andy Reid. He's like, yeah, I think that's really Andy Reid. And I don't like it. Kind of looks like Andy Reid. Kind of looks like Andy Reid. So, and by the way, I'm not blaming the NFL for the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is not meant to be streamed on at Radio Row. You buy in advance Ethernet access or fast. That's how people are doing radio shows, and networks are doing stuff. They're plugged in. They paid whatever $1,000 or $1,400, whatever it cost. Cam Newton, his whole setup was behind me. I spent a lot of time talking to Cam Newton's people. I'm here to tell you, they've got a hell of a crew, good people. But I did not. I went down impromptu without really a plan. I bought a flight, which was like, I don't know, $250. Got the hotel room cheap through the NFL rate, and thankfully my friend Ashley had a table there for her podcast. Your mom, you might have seen that thing I did with Lisa McCaffrey last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. I've lost complete track of time. So I just went down there, no plan, just the money in my pocket, a mic and a camera, and had a good time. So anyway, no blame to go around for the Wi-Fi. It's not meant for was not meant for streaming. So it was great. If you enjoyed the content, thanks. I was just reading an article today by Connor Orr in SI. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say. It felt very weird to not go live during the week. It felt odd to just do the video, post it, and then not interact. So for those of you who left comments and watched and hit that like button, thanks. All right. I was reading an article by Connor Orr this morning in SI. And I thought the quote was, reading it reminded me that I probably haven't spent a lot of time on Andy Reid versus Kyle Shanahan. I mean, everybody has spent some amount of time on this, but probably have spent more time definitely spent more time talking about Brock and a bunch of other stuff than just like straight up Kyle versus Andy. And, ultimately people will say, well, it's Kyle versus, Spagnuolo and Andy versus Wilkes. And the answer is, yeah, mostly, except these guys are the head coaches and the play callers. I think that's what makes it really interesting, is that even though they're going against each other's DC, they're also going up against each other. So you got no problem saying, it's Andy versus Kyle. And I think, one of the obvious differences between these guys, if you watch this video I did with Dr. Michael Gervais yesterday, I posted it up. It's titled like Inside Brock's Brain, because we talk about just elite championship, mindset. This guy was part of the coaching staff for the Seattle Seahawks. And he said, one of the things I said to him in the interview was about, he had this quote about, confidence comes from really being in the fire, which is a great quote. And it's something we've talked about in other, using different words before, like you can't have experience before you have experience. And a lot of confidence comes from experience, from proving to yourself that you know how to do it. And, Shanahan has been here, but they've both been through fires. Like both their paths are somewhat similar. Andy's further down the timeline than Kyle, right? Andy was already at this place. Kyle was in Philly, and then he gets to Kansas City and he wins his championship. But for Kyle, I thought this was an interesting article from Connor. Well, let me see where I got it here. Yeah. And you probably won't be able to read it on the stream, but I'll tell you what he says. Chris Forster, the run game coordinator, offensive line coach for the 49ers. He says, you have to be as prepared as he is. Like the game is tomorrow. Like it's that play of the game, and you better know exactly the shit you're talking about. He said, you better your job is to have a list of third down plays ready as if you would call it with the Super Bowl on the line every single week. It better be vetted. Thoroughly investigate everything. Shanahan, and then I'll read from the article. This is not a quote. It says, Shanahan said it's kind of a self-projection. He contorts himself mentally and expects others to do the same. Quote from Kyle, that's just how I am. There are so many things that go into a play, and I'm kind of OCD about it. It can be exhausting in a week to decide some of the things based on all the contingencies you have to check. And, reading that, I just thought about the amount of pressure that must be on Shanahan internally. And I've said this for a few weeks now. People, how much pressure is Kyle under? How much pressure is Kyle under? He's under a lot, but most of it comes from himself. He set out to do this thing. He was a coach's son. He played for a minute, and then he became a coach's son's coach again, or the son of a coach who became a coach. And it's always been about this. And he's been working and working and working and working and working and working just for this. And he's been here before, and he's failed before twice. Once as a head coach, he's been in NFC championship games. So I don't think there's much more pressure he can put on himself, or the external world can put on him, than he puts on himself. Because, external pressure sometimes can come from having not been in the moment or knowing what it's about, or, your job being on the line. That's neither one of these things for Kyle. So when I read that article about Kyle's OCD and how, all the coaches have to be ready, Chris Forster has to prepare every week in the regular season as if the third down call he's going to make in this moment in week 11 is going to be just as pressurized and just as important as the third down call he's going to make in the Super Bowl. It just makes me wonder, will Kyle be tight? I know, because I know Andy Reid's not going to be tight. I know Andy Reid's not going to be tight at all. Andy, hell, he didn't coach tight when he didn't have a championship. Kyle's machine feels like it's got to be a little more finely tuned. Kyle, I don't know if this analogy works. It doesn't work perfectly, but the people always love making sports car analogies. Kyle's operation is kind of a Ferrari, right? And the Ferrari one little gasket can go, and it's a $50,000 repair. Andy's operation, it's Mahomes is the Ferrari, but Andy's operation is a little more, it's like Jeep Cherokee without a roof. Like it's down for whatever. And, you can feel it when you watch him. And luckily he's got Mahomes driving the thing. So you're like, a Ferrari and a Jeep Wrangler shouldn't be able to race, but Mahomes is driving the thing. Again, analogy doesn't work perfectly, but I think watching that Lions game again, one thing that really stood out was Ben Johnson. Those dudes tried not one, but two flea flickers. Now, if you watch college football every Saturday, you see flea flickers all the time. When you watch the NFL, just think about how often you see flea flickers, let alone two from the same team in the same game, and neither one of them worked. And you know, like a lot of times if a flea flicker fails, it's not because the quarterback just missed the open. Like weird stuff always happens on flea flickers. It's usually not defense stepped up and made a play. They saw it coming. They got the stop. It's usually weird shit happens. Play kind of breaks down or the run, whatever. I mean, the first one, Goff, I think he was getting hit or maybe the ball got deflected no, I know what it was. He was rushing and the ball came out funky. So if the Lions felt good enough to run 2 flea flickers, I can only imagine what weird shit Andy Reid's going to have cooked up for the Super Bowl. When the Niners are, I just think they're going to be a little bit tight early, and I don't know if that's necessarily the players, but we know what it looks like when this team doesn't hit point A to get to point B to get to point C to get to point D. Now, that said, if you've been listening this week or if you've caught some of what I've said this week, and all this stuff is available in the podcast as well, I've picked the Niners. I felt better by the day when I was in Vegas. Landed down at Tuesday a little iffy about the fact that I'd picked them, and the fact that that Mahomes is there is is just always going to make you be less than 100% confident. You can't be. I ran into a listener yesterday, and he said, "How do you feel?" And no, he said, "Should I be nervous? Should I be nervous?" Like, yeah, I said, "Yes, you should be nervous. Of course, you should be nervous. What are you talking about? You should definitely be nervous." But I'm picking the Niners 31-24. That's been the projection. That's been the prediction all week. There was a time when I was like 31-21, making 2 scores. But 31-24, that's the pick. So a little interesting research here, thanks to I was talking to Josh Dubow, the Associated Press, the other day, who loves being in Vegas. And he said, I said, Jake Moody didn't kick well at Allegiant Stadium in the preseason. And he said, I think he played the Senior Bowl here. I said, the what? Yeah, the Senior Bowl, not the Senior Bowl, the blue-gray game or whatever they call it, East-West Shrine Bowl. They used to, the blue-gray game was one and the Shrine. Anyway, the Shrine Bowl was at Allegiant Stadium. I think it was Shrine. And he goes, Moody was really good in the Shrine Bowl. I said, no, I didn't know that. So he looks it up. He goes, Jake Moody was 4 for 4 in the Shrine Bowl with 2 kicks of 51 yards apiece. He had 2 51-yarders in the Shrine Bowl. Now, the preseason, my coffee's not getting delivered. The preseason was not good. And I don't think what he did in I don't think it's been a long time ago, the Shrine Bowl. I don't think there's any good vibes left over from the Shrine Bowl. So it does feel like, no, let me correct that. It's not that it feels like 100% guaranteed Moody affects this game, right? That we know. Either on extra points and field goals made or extra points and field goal missed. And all it takes is missing one. So I saw somebody ask earlier, who is the name on the stream? Who is the name of the high performance psychology coach, Dr. Michael Gervais? Maybe that's something for the future, depending on how things play out. Maybe he'll nail a couple of kicks. If Moody nails a couple of kicks in the Super Bowl, hits all his extra points, hits a game winner or something like that, maybe that'll be his version of having been through the fire. And maybe it'll be enough for him to go, no, I found it deep inside me. And it'll set him on a good path beyond this year. Maybe this is a moment. That's what we're sure of. This is a moment for Purdy. It's a moment for Moody. It's a moment for Shanahan. It's a moment for all these dudes. Super Bowl champion Deebo Samuel, Super Bowl champion Trent Williams, Super Bowl champion Nick Bosa. These guys have been through the fire these last 3 weeks, and it's a pretty crazy situation they've been in. And I think you'd look at Kyle, if he finds a way to win a championship with a less than spectacular defense, right? Not the defense that they had in 2019, and not even the defense that they thought this was early in the year that I thought this was. And really not the defense that some of the raw statistics have shown that it is number 3 in points. You go, well, that's all you need to know. The efficiency numbers for the last several months have been bad, bottom third of the league. So, you can't do a legendary thing unless the odds are stacked against you. I'm going to say it again. It's such a good quote. Just came up with it. You can't be legendary until the odds are stacked against you. And I don't want to say the odds are stacked against them. They're literally favored in this game by the odds makers. They're in the Super Bowl. They earned their right here. They're one of the best teams in the league. They're not a little engine that could. But one thing that has not changed this week is that just about everybody is picking Kansas City, as has maintained. 70% of the bets, over 70% of the money are on the 49ers. That means the Chiefs are a very public team this week. Okay, the public especially, and we've seen the media picking, but the public is betting heavy on the Kansas City Chiefs. I should actually just check real quick. See just to say if I got a Saturday morning update. Okay, so slight change of the numbers I just said. 69% of the bets, 78% of the money. So almost 80% of the money is on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Sharps are betting on the 49ers. -2. The Sharps are betting on the 49ers -2. So Kansas City's public. I'm still seeing them at 2. Maybe you see it at 1.5 somewhere, depending. But I think we've overcorrected on the 49ers. And the extra week has given me time to think more about the team they were, even at the end of the regular season, that Philly team, and then you think about what they've been through. And that, it hasn't been easy for Kansas City either. Kansas City didn't score in the second half against the Baltimore Ravens. So I feel good. They've come to where they've come from. Michael on the stream says most of the reasoning they give to pick Kansas City is you can't bet against Mahomes. First of all, that's excellent reasoning. Second of all, that's the reason. That is the reason I give the Chiefs so much. It's not about respect, but it's the reason that gives me the most hesitation. The other reason is people think Kansas City's defense, rightfully people think, Kansas City's defense is excellent. It is. This is a massive test for Brock Purdy. Brock has not played great against the best defenses they've played. This is one of the best defenses they've played. Not better than Baltimore's defense, but it's one of the best defenses that they've played, on par. Steve Spagnuolo is fantastic. He is a worthy opponent for Kyle Shanahan. If they blitz and play man coverage, that'll be Brock Purdy's chance to shine. And they're going to do it. Now, I would expect they mix it up. And that's where it's going to get complicated for Brock and for Kyle. And that's where you go, all right, this is what Kyle's needed. Kyle can go toe-to-toe with a defensive genius, and they're each going to get their wins. But what happens when you're wrong? When you call the wrong play against the wrong coverage at the wrong time? Does your quarterback cover the mistake for you? Remember, the first drive against the Baltimore Ravens, Niners had the wrong play against Baltimore's coverage, and Purdy threw an interception to Hamilton in the end zone because he was a little hyped up. Well, he's going to be hyped up this week. He's hyped up on Sunday. What it must be like for him. Everything that he has done and all the places he hasn't been yet. And here he is in this moment. I think it's pretty incredible. He's got a shot to be, to me, and I've heard, you've heard some of the Russell Wilson was this age when he won his championship. Tom Brady was this age when he's won his championship. For those of you non-Bay Area people, there's a lot of you I know. Hopefully this comparison lands. But Buster Posey was 23 years old when the Giants won their first World Series of 3 with him behind the plate. He'd come on that year. He was the catcher. He was an MVP. He was a batting champ and a 2-time World Series champion by the age of 25 years old. 23 is when he won his first World Series. Brock's 24. And I think the Buster Posey comparison works just like some of these quarterback ones do, because Buster was such a steadying force for them. And, he was such a fundamental player. To me, watching Buster Posey was unlike watching any other Hall of Famer that I've watched. Like, other guys have existed like this. But I was calling Fresno Grizzlies games. That was the Giants AAA team, minor league baseball, when Buster Posey came up. And by the way, Steve Palazzolo, who I went up to this week in Vegas, PFF, Steve Palazzolo, the curly hair, was one of the pitchers on the Fresno Grizzlies. But I remember when Buster came up, and one of the things, it was not a criticism, but it was kind of like, we'll see if he can do it. One of the things with Buster Posey is that he had not pulled the ball for a home run by the time he got to AAA. And even his first couple of home runs in AAA were not pulled. This is for those of you who are not into baseball, this is very unusual. Young players, if they're going to have power, especially young players, tend to pull it. Most players, their power is to pull. And especially young players, they do a better job of pulling the ball than going the other way. Buster was excellent going the other way. And his power came despite the fact that he didn't pull the ball. He just hit it where it was. I think one of Buster's great qualities was on a ball that somebody else would ground out weakly on a pitch, right, that was located in a spot that would create usually a weak ground ball. Buster would find a way to get just enough of his barrel on it to flip it over second base and into center field for a single. So in some ways he was not a singles hitter per se, but he was not a straight power guy. But he also managed a much older veteran pitching staff, right? He was so young. He was thrown into this moment. If the veterans didn't trust and believe in him, then that team was going to go in the tank because he had to manage the pitchers. Guys who'd had a lot of experience, guys who had failure, guys who'd been other places, who knew what worked for them, guys with different personalities. He had Lincecum, right? Brian Wilson came, and he managed all of it. And to me, that's very Purdy-ish, I think. And that's my comp. So this is that moment. They would go on to win 3 World Series. This franchise, we talk about their window. I've said this now for a while. As long as Kyle and John Lynch, they win a championship, John Lynch, go away. John Lynch had multiple opportunities to go away last year for a lot of money. Would he go away? But John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, like, this team is never gonna. Maybe you're not gonna have 9 All-Pros every year, but this team is not going to ever be without blue chip talent. That's just not the way John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are going to build teams. That's not the way they want it. So they're going to be talented. The question is, are they about to win a championship and then have a chance at 2? Or on Sunday night when we're back here, have they lost another shot? And then the challenge is going to be, can you really pick yourself up off the mat again and find the juice within you again to come back and come back and come back? That's challenging, right? Sometimes the failure makes you hungrier. Sometimes it knocks you down for a long time. And that'll be the other side of the coin if they lose this game. So, for either way, whoever wins this game, there's going to be talks of how far can they go? If it's Kansas City, how many more can they win? Can Mahomes catch Brady? He'd be 1 shy of Montana. Can he catch Montana? He'd have 3. If it's Shanahan, it's like, all right, they got this guy. They got the quarterback's cheap another year. Can they repeat next year? Right? If the Niners win the Super Bowl, they'll be the favorites going into next season to defend it. What's that going to be like? So, there's just so much. There's just so much. Hey, by the way, if you're here right now, appreciate you being here on YouTuber. Like the video, appreciate, subscribe, do all that stuff. Let's see. What else do we got here? What else we got to say about this game? I want to get to some of your comments as well. Yeah. All right. Let's get to some of what you guys had to say. Spy says the Giants had to trade Benji Molina because the leader needed to be on the field. Yeah. The year before the Giants won that first World Series in 2011, they brought Buster Posey up at the end of the year in September when rosters expanded. Then he started the next year back at AAA, and then eventually he went up to the big leagues middle of the year. And and never looked back. And it was time for Benji Molina to go. D2 says you got to break the dynasty and start a new one. The reality is if the Niners beat Kansas City's still not going anywhere. They still have they're still in a, mini, I don't know if it's mini, they're still in a dynasty or some version of it, as long as they have Mahomes in his prime. Now, the AFC is getting tougher, should be at least tougher than it was this year, next year, because Burrow comes back healthy and Jim Harbaugh takes over for the Chargers. But, they're not going anywhere. So this is the second time these two have met in the Super Bowl. We could look back in 10 years and they met 3 or 4 times in the Super Bowl. Would not surprise me. Mo says, you really think Brock is going to hold out? I think you mean you're saying hold out, play well in the game. Yeah, I do. I think he's going to play well. I don't know if he's going to play well for 4 straight quarters, but I think he's going to play well. And I feel good the last few weeks. One thing with Brock, if he starts good, then he's going to play good, probably play a good 4 quarters. Because if he starts well and they're scoring and they're playing from in front, then there's really no reason for Brock to take any of the chances that create their turnovers. If you told me Mahomes throws a pick, my feeling on this game goes up tenfold. But I think Brock has shown the last 2 weeks against lesser quarterbacks than Mahomes, he's outplayed them. He outplayed Love, outplayed Goff in the second half. I've been repeating that. So if you heard me say it, I know I've been repeating it. But so he might have to do the same thing this week or Sunday. Now, that doesn't mean just straight up have better number. I've got to make all these excellent plays. It's a team effort. The defense has to keep Mahomes in check a little bit in the second half. But yeah, I think he's capable of it. And I think he's capable of it because of his team, right? If Brock Purdy had Patrick Mahomes' offense, the Niners would not be in the Super Bowl. But because he does have this offense, and this is, by the way, the Niners are not the outlier with Purdy in this offense. Mahomes is the outlier. Super Bowl, the Niners look like a Super Bowl offense. The Chiefs do not look like a Super Bowl offense. So they're the outlier, and they're the outlier because they got Mahomes. I say that to mean it's not denigrating Purdy to say, well, look at all these weapons. Yeah, this is what this is what a Super Bowl roster looks like. Go look at Super Bowls. So, I do think he can, quote unquote, outplay Mahomes. That just understand. I hope I'm clear on what that meant. What I just said. He's got to go outplay him because the quarterback has to be better than the other quarterback to win the game. No, Mo. Okay, Mo was talking to somebody else, but it brought up a good question anyway. Somebody asked, where'd this go? How many carries for McCaffrey? My gut, just before I even look at the numbers, is 18. But let's look at the numbers. Okay, well, he had 17 against Green Bay. He had 20 against Detroit. But those are games they're playing from behind in. So I think you can expect if they're playing from behind, then then he'll have at least 20. He had 14 in the loss to Baltimore playing from behind, had 14 in the win against Washington. 18. 20. How about this? McCaffrey has not had back-to-back 20 carry games since week 1 and week 2 of the season. I would not have expected that. Now, we know carries and touches. He had 25 touches week 1 against Pittsburgh. He had 20 touches against Baltimore because of these catches. I know people think that McCaffrey's going to suddenly have more than that. I don't think he will. 24 touches against Detroit. I think that's 24. He's had 24 touches the last 2 weeks. So I'll go with 24. But I think it's going to be a few less catches and a few less carries and a few more catches. So I'm going to go with my first gut. I'm going to go 18 carries, 6 catches, 5 to 6 catches. I just think there's going to the difficult thing is there's just not that many possessions, and that's going to be you watching the Super Bowl. You just be very aware of how many possessions there are, and you start counting. And the Niners have been behind the 8 ball the last few weeks, and and you're counting the possessions, and they found a way. I have to correct myself. I think I said 2012 World Series. 2010 World Series was the first World Series. But Dan says this just feels like a 200-plus yard game for McCaffrey. I don't think so. I think it's going to be a challenge. I think they're going to spread it around a little bit. 200, I mean, 200 makes it. People are going to be like, should that guy been the regular season MVP if he's got 200 yards at this thing? Michael says, usually Shanahan will do the opposite of what you think he'd do. Stats say he should run it, just like the Lions or the Packers, but he went pass heavy. I mean, I got to think their experiences the last 2 weeks. The challenge here is where do you attack? It's just a game plan thing, right? I don't think it's so much about trying to outsmart. It's just what do you do? Where do you attack? And one of the things, if you saw the Greg Pop interview earlier this week, he's adamant, and he's around this team. He knows what they're talking about. That running at Chris Jones is the way to beat Kansas City. We know that Christian can run between the tackles. I don't think there's going to be any shortage of either. I'd be surprised if you look at this game and afterwards we can say Kyle had an X game plan, like a run heavy or a pass heavy game plan, because I do think he's going to throw it. He is going to throw it. He trusts Brock a lot. He's continued to trust Brock through challenges, and I think he'll trust Brock a lot. Always good to try and get to the super chats earlier because then people see that you can drop a 5 spot. So, Joe Eddie's guy, just remember this contribution. My cousin Deebo Samuel is going to bring us home. You heard it here first. I actually agree with this. I think after the game, we haven't done MVP. I think there's a high likelihood that Deebo, if the Niners win, I've got him number 1 on my game MVP list, actually. If you said Niners win, okay, who's the Super Bowl MVP? I've got Deebo number 1 on my list. I got to pull up the odds. I'm guessing the odds favor McCaffrey and probably, if not the quarterback first. You never know. There's always like a random Levante David was great today. But I've got Deebo number 1. Yeah. I think this is going to be a huge Deebo Samuel game. I think it'll be a good McCaffrey game because McCaffrey just always gives you a good game. But I think with an extra time to prepare, extra rested, feeling good, this is where Deebo shows up, man. Now, the good news for the Niners, it's hard to pick out their bright lights guy because they have so many bright lights guys. But I just got a feeling about Deebo. So Joe Eddie's or Joettes, whichever. Thank you for the super chat, and I agree with you. I'm glad you said that because I had not gotten to that yet, or I probably was not going to get to it. Give Deebo the ball. World of Heidi. Yeah, man. That story that Peter King that wrote it? Somebody wrote it this week. That Lynch went in the locker room at halftime of the Packer game. Oh, no, it was Jed York said it on Kay Adams' show that John Lynch went in the locker room at halftime. I'm sure a lot of you saw this. Halftime of the Lions game. And Deebo was like upset. Almost, give me the damn ball. Just tell him to give me the damn ball. Yeah, man. That's the dude. So I think Deebo's going to be extra juiced in this game. Ayuk MVP. Could be. I don't have him as high on the list, but we got an Ayuk MVP pick. That's fine. Just Mike says, looking at everyone's attitude in the interviews, feels like this team is very focused. I was around them I was around the players on Tuesday and Wednesday. And Tuesday they had 12 of the players there. Wednesday they had everybody in there. They had 10 or 12 players at podiums, and then everybody just sitting around tables. So you might have seen the interview that I did with Brandon Allen, which I thought was really good. If you haven't watched it or heard it, Brandon's really an impressive guy. And Gave some good insight on Brock, gave some good insight on just the game plan, talked about him a little bit. I just think I think he's a really interesting dude. One interview I didn't post because camera died at the end of it as he was giving his keys to the game. You know who else is really impressive? I haven't had a chance to mention this. I talked to Braden Willis for a while on Tuesday, tight end from Oklahoma. Interesting dude because, they drafted a tight end, Cameron Latu, earlier, or Latu. He gets hurt. Willis is a 7th rounder playing on a potential Super Bowl championship team, right? The Niners have 3 major, and I might be missing one, but 3 major contributing 7th rounders: Brock, Juwan Jennings, and Braden Willis, who plays on special teams and has to be ready to go. So that was another, just to rattle off some of the guys I talked to. That was really impressive. Talked to Juwan Jennings for a minute. I told Juwan Jennings that when he catches first downs, people DM me or tag me and say 3rd and Benny. You got a kick out of that. Sunglasses inside guy, Juwan Jennings, cool guy. And just went around and talked to a few guys. So and watched them talk. And I agree. I think they're pretty. The one thing that is so evident when you're on the ground, I don't know if it felt to those of you who weren't in Vegas. One thing that is so evident when you're on the ground is how long 2 weeks is. It is a long time for these guys. It is a long time. Calvin Hobbs says, Giants versus Royals in 2014 are the Niners Chiefs in reverse. One team hasn't won in 29 years. The other team will, if they win, would win 3 out of 5. Yeah, good call. So you're saying, for people not following that, if you're not a baseball fan, Niners are the Royals, Giants are the Chiefs. And you know why that analogy really hurts? What do the Giants do? The Giants brought Patrick Mahomes out of the bullpen in Game 7. Madison Bumgarner. So I guess that's kind of a Mahomes legendary performance is what that was. That's Cosmo says Juwan Jennings is the energy we need. Juwan Jennings, you want to talk? All right, most comfortable player of the week award goes to Juwan Jennings. Juwan, very comfortable. I mean, now he's different than Braden Willis and Purdy as 7th rounders because Juwan basically redshirted his rookie year. I remember when Juwan got drafted, we did a draft video. And I was like, and I said something like, this is a few years ago now, obviously. And I said something like, whatever, it's a flyer. If it works out, it'll be lucky, whatever. And I remember maybe somebody in the comments, it was like, I feel like it was like a Juwan family member that found the video and said, you don't understand. Like, this is going to be a great pick. And, I was like, whatever, 7th rounder, if it works out. Yeah, the Ayuk one, I love that pick. The Juwan Jennings one, I'd be lying if I told you I had any belief that was going to turn into anything. And it's turned into, so much. So much. So CMC says Niners hotel fire alarm was intentional sabotage. LOL. Well, you know what's funny about that? And I laugh at that. Like, whatever, who knows? First of all, like, you think some local would rather set off the Chief? If it was a local Las Vegas person, you'd set off the fire alarm at both because you hate both teams. You can walk from there at Lake Las Vegas. You can walk from the hotels. You can go back and forth. I wonder when you have a team, I wonder how they handle the phone situation during the Super Bowl because, like everybody, it's so public what the team hotel is. Everyone knows the Hilton Lake Las Vegas is the Niners hotel, and the Chiefs. What was the Chiefs hotel? It's I got it right here. The Westin Lake Las Vegas, right? So they're not far from one another. They're out at Lake Las Vegas, which is like 35 minutes from the Strip. And it's like you can just call them like, hey, Brock Purdy, please. So I'd imagine either they restrict outside phone calls because at this point, no one's using those phones, or they all stay. That's a lot of aliases. I remember a few years ago, I traveled with the Warriors, filling in with them for them on radio. and you get the full itinerary, and it tells you like, when we're staying at the Four Seasons because it's the travel party smaller. NFL teams can't stay at the Four Seasons. The travel parties are massive. But we're staying at the Four Seasons. I remember the first stop on this road trip. It was we went Nets, Pistons, Cavs on Christmas Day. And I was talking about this with Ethan Strauss the other day on his podcast, which, by the way, I met a guy. He's like, "Hey, I heard you on the Ethan Strauss podcast." I'm like, "Oh, Ethan, your podcast is massive." But the first stop is the Manhattan Four Seasons. Okay, let me tell you, people, that is living. There was a TV in the tub, like in the wall. No, it was in the mirror, the bathroom mirror. We went to dinner at Nobu that night. All right. This was a trip. There was an omelet station at the private terminal when we left Oakland Airport. So anyway, we get there and they hand you, like, you get your per diem. My per diem was like, they feed you everywhere. You don't need it, but you get an envelope of per diem for the trip. And however many days it was, it's like $100 a day, right? So you open it, it's like $500 and hundreds in there. But they also give you here's a sheet, and on the sheet it has a room list, and it tells you also like what ballroom the team meals are in, and like you have access to everything, what time the bus is leaving for the shoot around, all that stuff. And on the room list, it tells you where all the players are staying, except it doesn't have any of their names. So one of my favorite mementos that I've had from my career, I guess it is that in broadcasting, is that sheet. Because it's got this is the Warriors team with Steph and Durant, right? They won the championship, and it's got all their aliases on it, which I won't repeat here. I'm sure it's been several years. I'm sure they've changed it since then, but I always thought that was really cool. Oh, I didn't see this. Mr. Joe says Deebo was interviewed and was asked who he would let babysit and not babysit his kid. He said Juice would babysit and Juwan Jennings would not babysit. That is a great question. I'll tell you this. Juwan's vibe is not everybody even has a vibe. Juwan Jennings has a vibe. And what's funny is if you go back and watch on YouTube the interview I did with Juwan Jennings a few weeks ago, his locker is next to Juice's locker. Juice's locker is like between Jennings and Ayuk. And there might be, I think Corey Luciano's right there. But during the Jennings interview, if you go back and watch it, I didn't say it. You don't know what's going on. But during the interview, mid-interview, Juice comes up and like daps him up. And, he's like, that's my guy or whatever he said. I don't know. But it's just a team that really, really does get along. James says, "Hey, big fan of yours. Can you give a shout out to my wife, Bara? Can you tell her I love her, please?" James, are you working and Bara's just home watching the stream? So I hope it's a Bara. I hope I got Bara right. Shout out to Bara. James loves you. Better than a ring. Michael, I wish someone would talk about Lions Packers with a psychologist. Explain how the team fell behind. It was not about our talent smarts. Did they not sleep well or in their heads? So weird. I did not get to that with Dr. Michael Gervais, but I did talk to Michael Gervais. Again, I'm plugging again. For the people listening to the pod, you've already heard me plug it a few times, but Michael says Chase Young's the biggest question mark, could be the biggest catalyst. I don't think he is a question mark. I think he is what he is. You've seen it. You've gotten it. He'll make plays. He'll miss a couple plays. They'll run some jet sweep by him or whatever. Whatever. It is what it is. Like, if we're talking about, I don't know, man. If we're talking about effort going to the Super Bowl, weird. NFL Films need to do a segment on Trent's locker situation. Yeah, Kyle talked about it. He said he'd never seen anything like it, but he also said, I don't really pay attention. It's cool. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's two lockers side by side. He's got two. And he's got a big, nice, soft rug, and he's got it's roped off, kind of. You can only enter his space from one side because it's roped on the other two sides. Imagine like when you walk into TSA and it ropes back and forth. It's those types of ropes. Dale says Ambry Thomas is going to get a pick. I feel it. Good prediction. Robbie, guy, what was more important to you? The dominance they've shown versus the Eagles or Cowboys, or the ability to come from behind against the Packers and the Lions. The dominance they've shown. Yeah, I think that's the team that has to show up this week. I don't think the Packers and the Lions helped you by turning the ball over, by making mistakes. I don't think Kansas City is going to make the same mistakes that the Packers and the Lions did if they've got a lead. If the Chiefs are up by 10, whoa, Nelly. The Jello's jiggling. Chick Hearn, the old Lakers, the former great late Lakers broadcaster, used to say, like, that sucker's in the fridge. You can go ahead and shut it down. That would be the craziest part of all this. If they were to be down 10 to Mahomes and come back and win. Now, as we know, being up by 10 doesn't guarantee you shit either. So it's just not supposed to be easy, man. It's like I said, when somebody said to me, should I be nervous? It's not supposed to be easy. None of these things aren't easy. If it's easy, it's the exception. All right. Thanks for being here. Good to be live again this week, back home. Time to head out. Some people say, God, you want to get back home Saturday and recover? I say no. It's a beautiful day outside. I haven't been outside for more than, I guess I waited for an Uber the other day for like 4 minutes outside after the party at the F1 Plaza in Vegas on Tuesday night. That's the longest I've been outside, but it was nighttime. The sun was not out. So you know that video of Juice and Christian McCaffrey getting 20 minutes or 10 minutes of sun before 10 a.m.? I've gotten no sun at any point since probably Monday. So I'm going to go out right now. It's sunny here in the Bay Area. I'm headed to the marina for brunch. If you're in the marina for brunch or lunch on Saturday, I'll be there. And I'm going to be out there getting some sun. So, yeah, it's like 59 right now. But, for those of you who know the city, like, you get out, it's sunny, you do a little walk-in, and it feels great. Question, do you golf? Yeah, but I haven't. I've golfed like once in 6 months because college football and the NFL just crushed my golf time. Yeah. All right. So that's that. Maybe we'll be back Sunday morning. I don't know. I haven't thought about that yet. But fired up. Bittersweet. It's bittersweet, people. Final NFL game of the year. Can't believe it. Vitamin D deficient guy. That is I. I should take some vitamin. I got some vitamin C around here somewhere. All right, y'all. Thank you for hanging. Thanks for consuming the content all week. Sorry we weren't able to do lives all week, but glad you found this one. And we'll talk to everybody soon. Later. Super Bowl Sunday. I'll talk to you tomorrow. All right. Bye.